Forum. Let's continue our conversation with Middle East expert Walid Phares. Walid, we have had several conversations about the exporting of Islamofascism and terror to these shores, or at the very least to the North American continent. Let's talk about what happened in Canada with two soldiers being run over by a, quote, radicalized driver.
Well, Congressman, this is the serious business for us in North America, in Canada, but also in the United States. This is not so different from the dozens and dozens of attempts against our own national security by what we call the lone wolves. We don't know if that wolf, jihadi wolf, was alone or not, but basically he acted alone in this case. This is a continuation of Major Hassan's action, of the Tsarnaev brothers in Boston, or shooting in Arkansas, and of the dozens of cases that we stopped. So we need to calculate not just the ones that were bloody, but the ones that we stopped. In Canada, of course, there's an investigation right now, but this is coming after a call by the heads of the Islamic State, ISIS, to any jihadi around the world to do as much as they can to harm the West, to harm the United States, members of NATO, and others.
You mentioned lone wolf. I may have my disagreements with our FBI director, but I do agree perhaps we ought to change the description to lone rat for whomever these radicals are and whatever they try to do. You mentioned what has happened before, where the press and perhaps those in power have gone to great lengths to minimize the influence of terrorism, whether it's what happened at Fort Bliss, to this day being called a workplace incident. I guess we could go back over the crime blotters, and we have seen hit and run accidents. If memory serves, there was one a couple of years ago at the Student Union, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, that was not the driver. Apparently had these ties as well, but local media and others refused to make that connection. Do you believe that we will see more and more of these lone rat hit and run attacks in an extension of, for lack of a better term, Walid, everyday terrorism?
Absolutely. I have projected already, it's been almost 10 years now, in my book, Future Jihad, Terror Strategies Against America, published in 2005, that with time, those lone wolves, rats, or in my view, lone jihadists, will increase in numbers. And what will compel me to say this is the calculation that the ideology is spreading, and spreading faster via Facebook, via social media. So the wider the pool of radicalized individuals is, we're going to see a segment of that pool growing as well, those who will decide to take the ideology to action. The problem with the administration over the past 5 to 6 years, as you just said, is that they refuse to identify it as a collective problem. Each one has a reason. You know, workplace violence, hit and run accident. They do not want to recognize that there is an overarching ideology. And this is the difference between what was there before, since 9/11, as you know, and then what has been the case since 2009. And I hope that this will change. I hope the next Congress will be able to come back and give us some better legislation as to how to identify this ideology, how to stop it, and therefore how to confront these lone wolves, rats, or jihadists.
Walid, let's talk about our neighbors to the north, Canada. We often talk about political correctness paralyzing us here. Is that the same situation in Canada? Has there been a move culturally to accommodate people to the point where ideology is ignored?
Hello? Yeah.
Walid, can you hear me, sir?
I can now.
Great. Yes. Let me restate the question very briefly. Attitudes in Canada. Is there a tolerance of this toxic ideology that borders on the same, we thought it was uniquely American affliction of being politically correct? Has the ideology flowered in Canada?
It did. It does. Actually, according to our research or research of other colleagues, there are parts of Canada where the ideology has been not just progressing, it is now visible. It's visible in terms of on campuses and elsewhere, pure ideology of jihadism. In Canada, they have a division. You have the government, the higher levels of government, unlike here, is decided to go against the ideology. The academia, media, and the establishment, like here, does not want to go against this ideology. So they do have their problem, but reversed.
Well, it's interesting. I guess it was inevitable we would see political correctness there. Less than a minute, 30 seconds, an update on the president and his negotiations with Iran. Will he try to pull something unilaterally that will not need congressional approval?
He is trying. He's trying badly to bypass Congress, especially now, especially between now and January or February. And that's critical because the Iranians will use whatever the president will give them to consolidate, number one, their nuclear project, number two, their influence in Iraq, in Syria, and Lebanon. And now, pro-Iranian militias, congressmen, have been making progress in Yemen. The Iranian influence, while we are fighting one species, one beast, ISIS, the other one is growing, and it will become the problem of the future.
We will have to leave it there. We'll discuss in the future. Walid Phares, you have our thanks. We'll be right back.